And so, Rupa, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and GEP?
So I grew up in India. I grew up in a middle class family in Mumbai in India. I came to the US about 30 years ago. So in a couple of weeks, it'll be exactly 30 years
Oh,
since I came to the US. Yes.
that's exciting.
I came. Time flies. Time flies. I came to the US to study. I got my master's in pharmacy in Brooklyn, New York. And it's been a fun and interesting 30 years since I've been here. When I grew up, right, I didn't imagine coming to the US was going to be, it wasn't my goal objective. It was interesting how the whole thing came about. My dad was having a conversation with me. So this was, my dad was unwell. He was on, he had chronic kidney infection. He was on dialysis.
Okay.
And asked me once, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to study. He said, what you need to do is make sure you go to the US. He said, I'm so glad you told me you wanted to study because your mom and your grandmother have been on my case. They want me to get you married. But I'm so glad to hear that you want to study because I have a feeling that you will be able to live up to your potential in the US. Why he said that, I have no idea. Because we didn't have any family members or relatives who were in the US.
Right.
And he called my mom aside and he told her, I don't care what happens to me, just make sure that she goes to the US. The next morning, he passed away.
Oh, wow.
It was a very, I guess, it was tough, but my mom took his word to heart. And a couple of years later, she made sure whatever savings she had, she was able to use that. I applied to a few of the universities in the US and I came to Brooklyn, New York. Studied here. I met my husband. We live a mile away in India, but we had to come 10,000 miles away to meet each other.
Oh my
So we met each other. He was getting his PhD in chemical engineering. I was studying, getting my master's. So we were chaperones. And we ended up spending so much time with each other that we got to know each other very well. And we ended up getting married.
Oh oh my God, what a small world.
Yeah, it is a very, very small world. I worked for a few years. Then both of us started our business degree and MBA program. We started by commuting to Chicago. He started it first. I joined soon after. After getting an MBA, I worked for a couple of years at A.T. Kearney and in management consulting. I was, I would say, an okay performer. I wasn't the best or the brightest. And during that time, I had my first child. My son was born. So after, in the US, women get only 6 weeks of time off.
Right.
After the 6 weeks were up, I started back work. And there was, given my pharmaceutical background, there was a client on the West Coast. And I was asked if I would be willing to do that. And my son was very young. I was nursing him. So I had said I would not be able to travel. And the company was very accommodating. They let me work on internal projects. But when the times are tough, right? And I wasn't, as I said, a shining star. I was okay. So I was let go. And really, that was the start of GEP. After I was fired, I said, okay, how do we make sure you create something where you're giving an opportunity for other women, other people to be successful? So really, the founding of GEP was from that, from failure. And because I had failed, failure was not an option. And
Right.
Fortunately for me, the other co-founders, one of them happens to be my husband, Subhash. One of them is JT. We went to business school together at University of Chicago, and Neha. Three of us. The three of them had never failed. So just because they were associated with me, they weren't about to start failing. So that really was, I guess, the start of GEP. And this is our 21st year since the company was founded. And I'm very proud of the fact about the things we have been able to do today. We are in the procurement and supply chain area. We are one of the fastest growing companies in that space. So if I look back right from the basement to having so many offices around the world, thousands of employees, it is very rewarding to see the growth of the business, and then more importantly, to see the growth of the employees, folks who started with us when they were single. I've seen them get married. I've seen them have kids. So it's been a fun journey.
Oh, well, I don't think that's necessarily a failure. So it's great success.
I think in hindsight, yeah, but when you go through it, right, there's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of questions, and even now, you have that imposter syndrome, right? Are you here because you deserve to be here? Are you here because you're lucky? Are you here because you're blessed?
Right.
And having the support really of the clients that we have worked with, been very, very supportive, very, very fortunate to have partners like them. And then also a lot of the women leaders. Many of our clients, it's interesting in the supply chain space, which traditionally has been very male oriented, many more men than women in procurement and supply chain. But if I look back in the last 5-7 years, it's very heartening to see women come up. And
Right.
I look at some of our clients. I look at Farron Melton from BMS. I look at Anu Hans from J&J. I look at Shelley Van Treek from Kellogg. I look at Sally from J&J again. I look at Monica from Honda. Fantastic clients, all very, very successful women. So
Yeah.
it's heartening to see that finally women are getting the limelight they deserve. I think in all industries, but particularly in the supply chain space.
Oh, that's really good to hear. So, what are some attributes that you think qualify someone as a good leader?
I think some things are very, very basic, right? So one is taking care of people. That I think is something very near and dear to me. So taking care of the people who work with you, making sure that they are able to realize their full potential. Uh, if people had not had the faith in us, if some of my co-founders had not had faith in the idea, I don't think we would have been here today. Some of our clients, when you're starting something brand new, somebody has to be willing to take a risk on you. And some of our clients were willing to take that chance on us. And if it wasn't for them, I don't think we would have been here. So from attributes, I think that part is key, making sure people feel valued, that their contributions are being recognized, and they realize that you're vested in their success. I think those aspects are important. And if I look at extending it, right, the ability to take risks, whether it is in your people, as I said, our clients took risks in us. We took risks in building the business, investing, whether it was in technology, investing in the people. I think those are all very important aspects of being a leader. So I think we have been fortunate, very, very fortunate.
I agree with you when you say taking care of people, because whenever you think of a leader, you always think of someone that's like assertive and confident, but like you need to have empathy too, because like you have to take care of your employees, because if you're not going to stick up for them, then who will?
Exactly, exactly. And if I look back, right, historically, at GEP, we have had a very, very simple philosophy. I think the first one is making sure I guess, the realization that our paychecks are written by the customer. If you take care of the customer, you'll always be in business, right? And then the second piece to that is taking care of the people. Because
Mhm.
if you take care of the people, they will take care of the customer and you'll be
Right,
in business. So it's not rocket science, it's a very simple philosophy.
right.
And I think that has served us well.
And that is something that you champion, right? To have like a family culture within the business too. Can
It's
you touch
it
on that?
it is the culture is very family oriented. When we were smaller, so I knew the names of all the employees. I knew the names of their spouses. I knew the names of their kids, and I knew the names of I knew what the kids were into. So whose child liked Superman, whose child liked Batman, who liked Dora the Explorer, who liked Ariel, things of that nature. As we
Yeah.
have grown, it's not possible for us to know all of that. It's not possible for me. So what I do is I'm relying on my team. I'm counting on them to know their team members better and taking that personal interest, because people honestly they don't care of how much you know, they want
Mhm.
to know that you care. And I think that
Right,
has been our mantra and has worked well.
right. How has GEP had to adapt to the coronavirus pandemic?
Again, because we have a combination of both uh, the services side, the advisory side, as well as the software side, I think we have been lucky. We have been better prepared than many other companies. And it's humbling to see the level of effort our employees have done. So we have a global employee base. Many of them are located in, whether it's in Costa Rica, whether it's in Mexico, whether it's in Mumbai, India, in Prague, in London, um, throughout the world. And some of these locations, they're living in if I look at a big city, whether it's New York City or I look at Mumbai, there might be multiple people in the household. In the same house, you might have a husband and wife who's working, you have kids who are trying to do online education. It's not the easiest, but the
Mhm.
employees have gone above and beyond to delight the customers. And the customers have appreciated that. The clients have appreciated the passion. What I like to say is at GEP, if there was ever a DNA test of customer delight, that's something they would find in every single Gepper. Every single person, whether the customer is external or the customer is internal, people go out of their way. And I think we were very fortunate in two ways. One, the employees were flexible, they were prepared to handle the crisis and be able to still work from home to delight the customers. And
Mhm.
then even from a client standpoint, right, they have been very supportive. Most of them, they have shut down their offices for the safety of the employees. Of course, they don't expect the consultants to come on board. So we have been fortunate in that regard. And the second aspect is the business that we are in, right? Supply chain area has been disrupted the most. Whether it was running out of toilet paper in the early part of the pandemic, or now you're running out of Lysol, wipes, you're running out of Purell, things of that nature. So the field that we are in the supply chain and procurement, that field is always in demand, but particularly in a pandemic like this, I think it puts us in a very good place to be able to help and support our customers to help with minimizing the supply chain disruptions and also looking futuristically, right? How do we, uh, if we are caught underprepared this time, how do we make sure when something like this happens in a few years, hopefully it never happens, not a pandemic, but something else where you have some kind of a supply chain disruption, how do we help anticipate that and better prepare? So it really puts us in a very good situation. And leveraging the data that you have, leveraging artificial intelligence, understanding what the trends are, where the risks are, whether it's in certain parts of the world, whether it's in certain raw materials. How do we better prepare ourselves to handle this crisis better next time? As I said, hopefully there's not a next time.
I know, fingers crossed, right? Are there any challenges that you have faced in the industry? I know that you mentioned earlier in our conversation that you were let go early on in your career, but how did you overcome some of these challenges?
I can say it was easy, especially the first phase, right? As I mentioned, when you have something like this happen, the first thing you tend to do is, why me? It is a victim mentality, and you're blaming everybody but you.
See how it goes.
Till you finally realize that you have very little control uh, on the outside situation. So I was reading in a book, there's an equation, S plus R equals O. S is the situation, O is the outcome, R is the reaction to the situation.
Okay.
So situation you have no control over, right? Whether it's being fired or when you have a crisis like this that happens. Or I look back at the history of the company, right? There have been many such, not to this magnitude, but many shocks that we have faced, whether it was September 11th, uh, whether it was the financial meltdown, uh, whether it was the recession, and now a pandemic like this. There's very little control you have on the situation. If you want to change the outcome, the only thing you can do is change how you react to the situation. So instead of looking at it as, oh my God, it's the end of the world, looking at how can we use this as challenge as an opportunity. What do we learn from it? How do we do things better? And how can we help uh, others also respond to the situation better? So using that, I guess, and again, it's learning. I wish I could say I was wise. I wasn't. It's just learning from the mistakes I've made in the past, and then realizing that there's really not much you can do about the situation, and taking ownership, taking responsibility of accountability of what is under your control, and then changing things that you can. So really, I think that was helpful. And I think looking at a situation like this, right, I would say, so early part was very challenging when the business wasn't doing well. There was a long period of time where we wouldn't be drawing a salary because we had to make sure we were. Uh, so when we started the company, it was, we got the money from angel investors very quickly. We spent it very quickly, and we're in a situation where we're running out of money. And when you don't have money, there's still people who are part of the business. You take care of them first. You take care of yourself last. So there was extended period of time where, of course, you're not drawing any money, you're not drawing any salary. And when you look back at the the investors at that time, they would say, why don't you just shut down the business? We can get a tax write-off. You don't have to struggle so hard. And that would have been, that was an alternative, not something we considered. And as I said, the reason for that was I had failed not once but twice. I wasn't about to start failing again, with or without my son, who was born at that time. And for the others, they had not failed, and they were not about to start failing. So failure was not an option, and we decided to stick to it. And we went back to our roots. So went back to what we knew best, which was delighting the customers, helping them save money, because that never goes out of fashion. And then once we were able to do that, we started taking more risks. And I think that also has been helpful. And again, when you start a business, you're taking risks. Not all of the risks will work. Some risks will work out very well, other risks won't. And you learn from those mistakes and you do something else, you try something else. So, really, that was one of the early times that were tough. And if I look now, we are not out of the woods yet, for sure, right, with the pandemic.
Right.
but this is the first one. The earlier mini shocks, right? They were either within a geographic region or it was within a particular industry. This has been across the board, across the world. So really, how do we make the best out of this and come out even stronger than we were prior to the pandemic? I think is going to be a real challenge. But I'm confident that we will be in a better position, having learned all the lessons that we did this time to prepare us for the future.
Oh, that's good. And like you can fail upwards too. Like that's a good.
Absolutely right. You said you hit the nail on the head. Why not?
But I also think it's just really important, especially to hear for the younger girls that might be entering the industry too, that like you just have to take responsibility for your actions. Like you have one day to whine. That's what I always say when I'm upset. Like you have one day, just soak in your feelings and then be better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can, yeah. Sometimes it takes more than one day, though.
And that's true.
Then I think what we're doing well is, particularly, I mean, for women, right? It's important to have that support structure. I mean, we have the award now. The recognition is great, but realizing, providing that opportunity to so many more women, women who earlier may not have taken part in, may not have looked at supply chain as a career option for them because it was so dominated by uh, men. I hope they look at this as an opportunity. Okay, this is an additional field that I had excluded and I can look at now. At GEP, we have a really nice group. It's called the Women at GEP group, where we provide support to women. We have 4 different pillars. So we have attract and recruit pillar to help more women come at GEP, but it would apply just as well to women in the supply chain area.
Right.
Then looking at advancing them, empowering them, recognizing them. So 4 different pillars to help women grow in this field. I mean, grow at GEP, then of course in the supply chain field overall too.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also important to have that representation as well because when you see someone that looks like you that is in a position of power or is succeeding in their career, it's more feasible that you can do that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because we all are looking for some role models. We are looking for some groundbreakers.
Yeah.
We're also looking for, I guess, people like ourselves too. So not everybody was born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Not everybody has had fantastic grades in their academic lives. Not everybody has grown like a straight line in their career. So there is always, there are some people, myself included, where we've had to take one to multiple step backs. And it just, having folks like ourselves, I think might help more women
Mm-hmm.
come forward. And in whatever way we can help and support women in this field, I think we should do all we can, whether it's from a mentorship standpoint, whether it's from taking risks in other women-owned businesses, women who might have started something on their own, taking a chance on them. Uh, and some of those chances will be very successful, and some of them may not work out, but still having that open mind and giving a chance.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you because you never know what you'll get. And most of the time, it's usually good.
It'll be even better.
Right.
The ability to connect the dots, the ability to see the big picture,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to multitask, the ability to empathize. I think women do that extremely well.
Right.
So I think it would be nice to have more women.
Right. And then you did touch on this a little bit in your last answer, but what is it like to be a woman in an industry that is traditionally dominated by men?
I think sometimes it's a little bit frustrating.
That's okay. I can agree.
uh, but it is rewarding because it shows that you're made of stronger stuff, that you can do very well in this field when people don't have very high expectations from you. So just the fact that I think it's groundbreaking in many ways. And I think, as I said earlier, right, it's for me, I find it very rewarding now to see more and more women come up in
Right.
this space. So, starting with frustration sometimes to uh, being, I guess, heartened, happy to see the growth of women in this field and see what impact we are making because women who are in leadership positions, not only are they bringing diversity of ideas, but there's so much research which shows that companies that are led by women tend to do better from a returns to the shareholder perspective, from just growth, because they tend to. I know women like to talk a lot. Me, I like to talk a lot, but I think we do a very good job of listening to instead of just hearing ourselves speak, listening to the ideas that our clients might have, our employees might have, and that makes us uh, in a better position, and our companies, our organizations, in a position to do even better.
Hmm. I agree with you. And then I know you said that GEP has their own organization for women, but what are some other ways that we can recruit and then retain more talented women in the industry?
I think one ask women to give a shout out to them. We bring women from campuses. We
Mhm.
bring women from the industry. So we actually have right now, there's a diversity drive going on in our Mumbai office where the drive is open, just only women can apply. Which is not it's not something that we did 20 years ago. I wish we had done that 20 years ago because then we would have had a lot more women, even at GEP today, right? But I think with the women at GEP helping, so bringing ambassadors, bringing women who are successful, having conversations with them, trying to understand some of the challenges that we face are not unique, right? How do we share how we have handled those challenges? What have we done? And also leveraging, I think, a couple of things that I have learned. One, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think women are very, very shy in raising their hand and asking for help. We try to do everything by ourselves, whether it is trying to manage your work and your home, manage your kids and your spouse, manage the employees. I think just by asking for help, we will find that not only are other women willing to help and support, but the men step in and help as well. So having that support structure is very, very helpful and not being afraid to ask for help. The second thing I have learned is when we talk about taking risks, we tend to be a little more risk averse. We want, if there is a job out there, an opening out there, unless and until we meet 90% of the criteria, we will not even apply for that position. And
Mm.
I would challenge women, why don't you apply for it, even if you think you have 50, 60, 70% of those bullet points, the requirements, you might surprise yourself. unless and until you give yourself that push and be willing to get out of that comfort zone, it's going to be a little bit harder. So be willing to put yourself out there, take the risks, take a chance on yourself, and you'll find out that you have so much potential that even you did not know that you have.
Right.
So looking for women like that as we try to recruit and attract women, I think I mean, these are some of the things we could consider doing. Having the role models, having forums where women can speak their mind, give them an opportunity for them to share their experiences so that other women who haven't explored those avenues are more willing to do that.
Mhm. And then, what is something that you would tell your younger self when you first entered the industry that you have learned today?
I would say don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take risks. Um, make I think invest in yourself. Uh, I'll, so 1/3 of our life we spend sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
1/3 of our life we spend working. How well we do in life will depend on how we spend the last 1/3. So how do you use that time that you have to invest in yourself, make yourself knowledgeable about what else is out there? That constant hunger you have for learning, the growth mindset you have. Because if you keep an open mind, you'll find that you are capable of anything. So don't be afraid to do that. So I think that's the advice I would give. And don't get too hung up on trying to make everybody happy. It's impossible to make everybody happy. The only person you can make happy is yourself.
True.
Uh, and if you feel good about yourself, then you'll be in a much better position to give back. And because if you're not in a good place yourself, then it's very hard to help other people and lift them up. So I think that's something I have learned, that if you want to lift your others up, make sure you are in a good position with how you view yourself. And then it's much easier to lift others.
Right. Well, I completely agree with you. Well, Rupa, I just have one last question for you, and it might be a hard one, so just keep preparing. But how does it feel to be named as one of SDCE's Women in Supply Chain?
I think it's very humbling. Uh, it's, it's a recognition that comes with a lot of, there's the Spider-Man saying, with a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility.
Right.
So I think this comes with a lot of responsibility. And what I hope it brings is uh, the ability, being that role model for women, inspiring more women to be exploring supply chain as a career option for them. And hopefully in the next 5, 10, 15 years, uh, being recognized is not a big deal because there are so many women in the supply chain area.
Right.
But right now, given the few that and far between women leaders we have in supply chain, all I can say is I'm very, very humbled and very honored to be recognized as such a woman. And I hope that it inspires other women to do more. Uh, yeah. Explore this option and do well in the supply chain area and just as women leaders in general.
Mm. Well, I think that's a great answer. 'Cause we always want a role model, and you are definitely one throughout the industry. So you're gonna inspire a lot of little girls.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the recognition. Thank you for the conversation. It was extremely, as I said, humbling, very nice to speak with you. And it was a conversation, which I like. It was a chat versus a more serious uh, discussion.
Right. But is there anything else that you would like to add?
Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to take risks. What is the worst that can happen, right?
Right.
You fail, you fall down, you brush yourself up, you brush yourself off, you stand up, and you continue walking
Exactly. Think
forward. Yeah.
upwards.
Fail upwards.
Right. All right. Thank you, Rupa. Just
Thank you so much.